Julian Ashford checked his watch for the 5th time in 10 minutes. 37 years old, CEO of a tech company worth hundreds of millions, and he was sitting in a corner booth of the river's edge waiting for another blind date he didn't want to be on. His mother had arranged this one. Just meet her, Julian. She's a lovely woman, a single mother, works as a nurse, real, grounded, kind. Julian had almost laughed. His mother had been trying to get him married for years, throwing every eligible woman in his path, but none of them saw him. They saw the money, the lifestyle, the doors his name could open. He was done with dating, done with pretending connection existed where there was only transaction. He would give this woman 15 minutes out of respect for his mother, then make a polite exit. He had quarterly reports to review anyway. When she walked in, Julian felt his carefully constructed walls shift slightly. She wasn't what he expected. Mid-30s, wearing a simple gray dress that had clearly seen many washes. Her honey blonde hair was pulled back in a practical style, and there were shadows under her eyes that spoke of long shifts and little sleep. But she carried herself with quiet dignity, moving through the upscale restaurant without the self-consciousness many people showed in places like this. "Julian?" she asked, approaching the table with a hesitant smile. "Yes. You must be Rebecca." "I am. Thank you for coming. I know your mother had to work hard to convince you." Her honesty surprised him. Most dates pretended enthusiasm even when none existed. "She's persistent," Julian agreed, gesturing for her to sit. "But I'll be honest, I'm not really looking for anything right now." Rebecca settled into her seat, studying him with calm gray eyes. "Neither am I, honestly. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a full-time job at County General. Romance is pretty low on my priority list, but your mother was so kind when she found out I was single, and she spoke so warmly about you that I felt I owed it to her to at least meet you." "My mother has a gift for emotional manipulation disguised as kindness," Julian said with a slight smile. "All mothers do," Rebecca replied. "It's how we survive." They ordered drinks, falling into polite conversation. Rebecca asked about his work, but not in the eager way that usually meant someone was calculating his net worth. She listened when he talked, about developing educational software, asking thoughtful questions about accessibility and implementation in underserved schools. Julian found himself actually engaged, asking about her work as a pediatric nurse, the challenges of the healthcare system, the exhaustion of caring for sick children day after day. "Why pediatrics?" he asked. "I imagine that's harder than other specialties." "Because children deserve advocates," Rebecca said simply. "They don't understand what's happening to them. They're scared. Someone needs to hold their hand and tell them it will be okay, even when it might not be." Something in her voice caught Julian's attention, a depth of conviction that went beyond professional dedication. But after 30 minutes, despite the surprisingly pleasant conversation, Julian felt his resolve returning. This was nice, but it wasn't what he needed. He didn't need nice. He needed to focus on his company, his goals, his carefully ordered life. He was preparing his exit speech when Rebecca spoke again. "Can I ask you something before you leave?" Julian paused, surprised she had read his intention so clearly. "Of course. Do you remember about 4 years ago, there was a crisis at County General? The children's wing was going to close due to budget cuts?" Julian frowned, searching his memory. Vaguely. "There was a fundraising campaign, wasn't there?" "There was, but it wasn't enough. The hospital was days away from shutting down the entire pediatric department. And then an anonymous donation came in. $2 million. It saved everything." "That's wonderful," Julian said, unsure where this was going. Rebecca reached into her purse and pulled out a worn newspaper clipping. She placed it on the table between them. Julian looked down and saw his own face staring back at him from a 4-year-old article. "Local tech CEO provides anonymous donation to save children's hospital wing." His chest tightened. He had forgotten about that donation. It had been a tax write-off, something his accountant suggested. He hadn't even visited the hospital afterward. "You once helped my daughter," Rebecca said quietly. "You saved her life, and you don't even remember." Julian's mouth went dry. "I don't understand. 4 years ago, my daughter Emma was diagnosed with leukemia. She was 6 years old. County General was the only hospital within 100 miles with a specialized pediatric oncology unit. When the wing was going to close, I thought I would lose her. We couldn't afford to travel to the city for treatment. I was working 3 jobs just to cover what insurance wouldn't. Rebecca's voice remained steady, but Julian could see the emotion in her eyes, the memory of that terror. And then your donation saved the department. Emma got her treatment. She went into remission. She's been cancer-free for 3 years now. Because of you. Julian felt something crack open inside him. I didn't know. I just wrote a check. I know, Rebecca said gently. That's what makes it matter. You helped without needing recognition. You saved lives without needing to see the faces of the people you saved. How did you find out it was me? I didn't, not for years. The donation was anonymous. But your mother and I got to talking at a hospital charity event last month. She mentioned offhand that you had made a large donation to County General years ago. When she said the amount and the timing, I knew. Julian sat back, overwhelmed. He had been ready to leave this date after 15 minutes, convinced it was another waste of time. Now he was staring at a woman whose daughter's life he had saved without even knowing she existed. I don't know what to say, he admitted. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that your generosity mattered. That somewhere out there is a 10-year-old girl who loves reading and wants to be a doctor and gets to have that future because you cared enough to help. Can I ask you something now? Julian said quietly. Of course. Why did you agree to this date? If you knew who I was, knew what I had done, you could have just sent me a letter, a thank you. You didn't need to sit here and have dinner with me. Rebecca smiled, and it transformed her tired face into something luminous. Because your mother told me that despite all your success, you were lonely, that you had forgotten how to let people close, and I thought maybe if you knew that your kindness had saved someone, it might remind you why connection matters. This was another setup, Julian said, but there was no anger in his voice. Your mother loves you very much. She worries about you. She should mind her own business, Julian said, but he was smiling. Would you like to meet Emma? Rebecca asked softly. Not now, not tonight. But sometime. She writes you letters, you know. She doesn't know where to send them, so she keeps them in a box under her bed. Letters to the anonymous donor who saved her life. Julian felt tears threatening. She writes me letters? Every year on the anniversary of your donation, she tells you about her year, her hopes, her dreams. She thanks you for giving her the chance to have them. I would be honored to meet her, Julian said, his voice rough with emotion. They talked through dinner and dessert and coffee after. Rebecca told him about Emma's journey through treatment, the terror and hope and exhaustion. She told him about raising a daughter alone after her husband left when the medical bills became too much. She told him about the nurses who became family and the doctors who cried when Emma went into remission. Julian told her about building his company, about the loneliness of success, about how he had started donating money because it was easier than donating time or genuine connection. I've been hiding, he admitted, behind work, behind wealth, behind walls I built so high I forgot there was anything worth coming out for. Then maybe it's time to remember, Rebecca said. That's the second time in my life someone has told me that, Julian murmured, thinking of another conversation, another chance at redemption. 2 weeks later, Julian stood outside Rebecca's modest apartment, nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first board meeting. The door opened, and a small girl with Rebecca's gray eyes and a bright smile looked up at him. Mom, there's a fancy man here, Emma called over her shoulder. Julian laughed despite his nerves. I'm Julian. Your mom invited me for dinner. Emma's eyes widened. The Julian? The donation Julian? Emma, Rebecca said, appearing behind her daughter. We talked about this. Let the man come inside before you interrogate him. Over spaghetti and garlic bread in their small kitchen, Julian met the girl whose life he had saved. Emma was bright, curious, and completely unimpressed by his wealth. She wanted to know if he liked reading, what his favorite subject had been in school, and whether he thought dogs or cats made better pets. After dinner, Emma disappeared and returned with a worn shoebox. These are my letters, she said shyly, placing the box in front of Julian. Mom said I could show you if you wanted to see them. Julian opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of carefully written letters on notebook paper, each dated, each beginning "Dear Anonymous Donor." He read them one by one while Emma and Rebecca cleaned the kitchen. Letters about finishing first grade, about learning to ride a bike, about being scared of the dark, about wanting to help other sick kids someday. "You kept writing even after you went into remission," Julian observed. Emma nodded. "Because you gave me the chance to have a life. That's not something you just say thank you for once." Julian felt his chest tighten. This child understood gratitude better than most adults he knew. Over the following months, Julian became a regular presence in their lives. Not as a benefactor or a wealthy donor, but as a friend. He helped Emma with her science homework, attended her school performances, and listened to Rebecca talk about her day over coffee. And slowly, something neither of them planned began to grow. Not gratitude disguised as romance, but genuine connection built on honesty and shared values. "I'm not looking for someone to rescue me," Rebecca told him one evening after Emma had gone to bed. "I've been taking care of myself and my daughter for years. I don't need saving." "I know," Julian said. "That's what makes you extraordinary. You've carried impossible weight with grace. I'm not trying to rescue you. I'm just hoping you might let me walk beside you. And I'm not a charity case," Rebecca continued. "I don't want your money or your connections. I make enough to provide for my daughter. We're doing fine." "I know that too," Julian said gently. "Rebecca, you've taught me something important. That the best kind of giving doesn't come with expectations. That real connection isn't about what someone can do for you, but about who they are when no one's watching. You've shown me what matters. And what's that? Showing up, being present, caring about people beyond the transaction. You do that every day, with your patients, with your daughter, with everyone you meet. I want to learn that from you." Rebecca studied him in the dim light. "You're not who I expected." "Neither are you," Julian replied. "I thought this dinner would be another obligation, another waste of time. Instead, you reminded me why I started my company in the first place. To help people. To make a difference. I had forgotten that somewhere along the way." "So what do we do now?" Rebecca asked softly. "Now we take it slow. We build something real. We let Emma get used to me being around. And we remember that the best relationships aren't built on grand gestures, but on showing up consistently for the small moments." A year later, Julian stood in County General's Children's Wing, which now bore a plaque recognizing his initial donation and his continued support. But more than the money, he gave his time. He visited young patients, funded scholarships for kids from low-income families, and created a foundation to ensure no child would be denied treatment due to financial constraints. Emma, now 12 and cancer-free for 5 years, volunteered with him on weekends, bringing books to young patients and holding hands when treatments were scary. And Rebecca stood beside them both, the woman who had seen past his wealth to the person underneath, who had given him a reason to remember why success without purpose was just noise. "Thank you," Julian said to her one evening as they watched Emma read to a young patient. "For what? For not leaving that date. For showing me your daughter's letters. For reminding me that the things we do without thinking can matter most. You saved her life," Rebecca said simply. "And you both saved mine," Julian replied, "just in a different way. Sometimes the people we help without knowing become the people who heal us without trying. And sometimes a blind date we're ready to abandon becomes the beginning of everything that matters." If this story of unexpected connections and life-changing gratitude moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of kindness rewarded and lives transformed. Comment below about a time someone's anonymous or forgotten kindness changed your life, or when you discovered the impact of something you did without thinking. Your story might inspire someone else to pay attention to their own small acts of grace.